much. All right, we will call the Ways and Means hearing to order. Sarita, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Hubbard.
Present.
Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Spencer.
Present.
Alderman Muhammad.
Present.
Alderman Odenberg.
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Present. And I think everybody was muted.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute him as I go along. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Chairman Vollmer.
Present.
11 present, you have quorum.
Thank you, Sarita, very much. We will move to approve the minutes of last meeting yesterday.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Entertain a second.
Second.
All right, Sarita, please take the roll.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad.
Aye.
Alderman Odenberg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Chairman Vollmer.
Aye.
And Alderwoman Spencer. I'm sorry, Alderwoman Spencer, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Okay,
Aye.
thank you. 11 aye votes.
All right, thank you, Sarita, very much. Everyone seems to be present, so we'll pass over excused alderman. And with that, we move on to our first bit of business, which is the communications office. And Ms. Donna Book Sanders, you are present. It's all yours.
Good morning. Good morning. Just a couple of notes. The communications division budget for FY90, I'm sorry, I'm going way back there, FY21 holds pretty steady with our existing year budget. Our full-time TO remains at 12 individuals. We have seen a decrease in some of the cable revenues over the past fiscal year. I think due more to people simply cutting the cord, and we've also noticed that AT&T seems to be moving away from investments into UVerse services. But the revenues are expected to hold steady at around $2.5 million. The communications division is also spearheading the small cell technology deployment on behalf of the Board of Public Service. We've started to receive and issue permit applications, and carriers are beginning to build out services in the city. There will be some new revenue dollars generated as a result of permit application fees, make-ready costs, and annual fees. One employee was added to our TO to help oversee this new initiative, and we anticipate about $150,000 in revenue this coming year. Our annual right-of-way fees are expected to, again, hold a little steady and generate about $2.1 million in this coming year as well. STL-TV continues to produce programs and certainly has played an integral part in addressing the communication needs of the city during the pandemic. We produced a number of stay-at-home PSAs featuring the health director, local celebrities, and elected officials. Most were aired on local broadcast radio and network television stations, along with several social media outlets. We've also ramped up our programming around the impact COVID is having on our community. Topics around increased domestic violence, how employees can remain productive during quarantine, what women who are pregnant can do during COVID should expect, highlighting local businesses who adjusted to stay open, and how schools prepared for e-learning and services for families, along with Operation Food Search, and how COVID is affecting the housing market. We partnered with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and STL Juntos to provide COVID-related information for our Latino residents. We continue to provide daily updates from the governor, the mayor, and COVID task force. We've also worked with ITSA to set up and host Zoom conferencing for all city departments and agencies during this time so that city business could continue. And I just want to give a shout out to my staff for stepping up to the challenge and making all things happen related to being there and being ready to address the needs of the city from a communications perspective during this pandemic. But as far as our budget is concerned, we're good. So that's all I got. Any questions?
All right, so you're a happy person. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, the tropics, right?
But we'll go around, see if any questions or comments from the board. Alderwoman Davis, any questions or comments?
Thank you very much. I just have a couple of comments. One is that this department is amazing. I've watched you grow over the years. We have asked a huge demand on you with recording all of our committee meetings. And now I see that you're just about recording every meeting that's held on behalf of the city's government. And so that says a lot for what you are accomplishing with a very small budget, that you actually take care of yourself because you make money. And that's good. So again, Donna and all your staff, Andre, you all are phenomenal. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Vaccaro.
Basically the same thing. You guys are doing a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay, Alderwoman Howard.
Unmute.
Thank you for stepping up and handling all of this with grace and style. You know, sometimes I understand some of us are not the easiest people to work with technologically, but I appreciate your patience and your willingness to keep at us and move us along. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we'll move on to Alderwoman Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I would just like to echo the comments of some of my colleagues. I would like to salute our communications division for going above and beyond to keep us up to speed with conducting the business of the city during a most difficult time. So I thank you again, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
All right, Alderwoman Murphy.
Same here, no questions. I said the budget looks like it's in order. And thank you too very much for your patience, especially with me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize, Donna, I didn't hear where the income I was having some technical difficulties with the audio here on my end. Can you describe again where we get the income?
Yeah, so the communications division is funded through cable revenues. So as we receive essentially what is considered franchise fees from cable subscribers, that is what funds the communications division. So a portion of those revenues, we collect about $2.5 million, and you can see the portion of that budget that we receive, and then the other portion goes, I guess, into general revenue.
Okay, but the communications division isn't itself generating revenue by charging fees for the work that we do.
Not in this respect, no. We do, in some cases, perform tasks for departments that receive grant funding. And in those instances, if there is a grant-funded project that a department would otherwise have either contracted with an outside entity, we will more or less bid on that, and we're able to, we call it more cost recovery, because we don't think we should do that project for free when they were otherwise going to pay someone else. So in that respect, we do generate revenue in that respect.
Oh, great. So is that outlined in the revenue portion of the budget? I just want to make sure that our communications department gets credit for those funds.
Yeah, I do put it on my revenue document that I submit to the budget division.
Great. Well, again, to my colleagues, we're grateful to have you enabling us to be online. I would like to see every single meeting that the city of St. Louis holds documented with STL TV. We're slowly getting there. Andre, you've been great to work with, thinking outside the box. So thank you through that. Thank you for helping me through some of those things as we've moved through this new world. And I have no additional questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Muhammad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner. I still think you're under budgeted. I still think you're understaffed, and hopefully sometime in the near future we can correct this because you guys do a fantastic job on a low budget, and from me looking at it, your staff is underpaid, and each and every one of them do their job with no problem, with a smile on their face. They deserve a raise. And I'm looking at your video production specialist. You have 5. The previous fiscal year, you went from 215,000 to 208,000. I see a decrease. There should be an increase, in my opinion. You and Andre do a fantastic job. That's all that I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Alderwoman Boyd.
No questions. I just did all my other colleagues. Andre, I'm just sad that we're in this predicament that we're in financially, that we can't push to get you the dollars that you need to do the department as it should be. But I'm glad we did push enough last year to get you some dollars. So we're keeping you on the burner so we can see how we can work things out.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
No questions, thank you, but I do want to ditto all my colleagues and commend you all for all the work you've done. You know how much I support you all and reach out to you all the time, so thank you. And I agree with Alderman Muhammad. I wish we could give you all more money. I'll be working to help support that however we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Donna, I guess what we're going to be trying to do is steal money from all the other departments for you, it sounds like.
Appreciate that. Let's do that. Okay. All right.
So I thank you for your time and all your efforts, Andre. You also thank everyone, and we are actually ahead of schedule. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay. You're excused.
All right.
If we have Dr. Wilson around, we'll entertain him. If not, if he's not ready yet, everyone take 4.5. Do we have Jamie on board? Oh, sure. Now the STL won't answer me.
He's not on yet.
Okay. All right. So everybody relax for a few moments. Okay, we can start back up. Jamie, if you are ready, Dr. Wilson, I should say, from the Streets Division, we're ready for your presentation. Can we see him anywhere?
Yeah, we're the dog with the handkerchief around the neck.
I was like, they represent a dog.
We're wearing our pajamas. We want you guys to see us.
Oh, okay.
Wait a minute. And you're all together?
That sounded good when I was thinking about it. It sounds so good now.
All right, so go ahead, sir.
Okay, well, I'll start. Again, this is Jamie Wilson, Director of Streets, Street Department. Present with me today is Kent Flake, our Commissioner of Streets, Zach Fortune, our Street and Traffic Liaison, and I believe Randy Breitenfeld, our Deputy Commissioner of Refuse, is also on the line. We're all available for questions as we go. I planned on kind of running through this, and if there's questions, you can stop me at any point and ask. So
Yeah, we'll
overall,
hold
the
the
Street
questions till the
Department-
end. Jamie, just go
Okay.
ahead and we'll hold the questions till the end.
Sounds good. In general, the street department consists of director's office, traffic and lighting, street maintenance, refuse, and towing. Currently, in fiscal 20, we're authorized for 451 positions. 351 of those are filled, so we have 100 positions vacant. So that's about a 22% vacancy. The budget proposed for fiscal 21 for the street department overall is just over 46 million. That's slightly less than 1% decrease from fiscal 20. In general, when we went in for our budget request meeting with the budget division, that was pre-corona. So some things may have made sense back then when we pitched them, and some things are more of a reality now. So in general, for the street department, and I'll go division by division, but in general, what we're gonna see is a slight reduction in some of our vacancies, no new requests, and comparable to the same accounts for the rest of our stuff, like materials and services. So going division by division, the director's office, 510, and for your, that's just responsible for permits, inspections, sewer lateral, general office administration for all the other divisions. Currently, we have 26 full-time positions. 23 of those are filled in 3 vacancies. Our proposed budget for fiscal 21 for the director's office is about 1.3 million, which is actually a 19% increase from fiscal 20. This will be the rarity from the rest of the stuff I'm going to say. We did get the addition of 2 street and traffic inspectors, as well as a plan reviewer. And that was all part of, it was rolled in with the board bill that was passed during this last session to increase our ability to charge a higher rate for some of our blocking permits, specific to the downtown area and some of our higher volume arterials. And through that increase, we're able to justify, we're gonna make a couple extra $100,000 a year. Rightfully so, those dictate a lot of our time for our inspectors. The degree of difficulty is much higher than residential street blocking permits. So we made the distinction in the way we charge contractors for that. To go with that increased revenue that we're forecasting, like I said, we justified these 3 new positions. So that's why they're in there, because they're associated with an increase in revenue coming to the city. So those roles are necessary to actually help us more enforce those blocking on those higher profile, higher volume arterials in the downtown area, which tend to dictate a lot of their time. Besides that, in the director's office, there's not really any change in any of the materials and supplies and contractual services in the remainder of our budget. In our 511 traffic and lighting division, they're responsible for the traffic signals, signing, striping, street lighting, traffic engineering. We're currently authorized for 86 positions. 69 of those are filled, which leaves 17 vacant. So that's about a 20% vacancy. You may see a slight difference in what you're showing as positions that are vacant. At the time we did our budget request or started the process in late February, we actually filled a couple of positions. So, but I don't know if you saw it to that level. Specifically, we had an electrician foreman that was showed as vacant, but it's been since filled within weeks after our first budget request meeting. Our proposed fiscal 21 budget is about 9.9 million. That's a 3% decrease from fiscal 20. Here we did see some cut in our vacancies. No fill positions were cut, but we lost 5 of our vacancies from our street lighting crews, which was about 4 of our trades helpers and 1 of our utility workers. In addition to those 5 vacancies, we also lost 1 vacant utility locator. Our materials basically stayed the same, and our contractual services reduced. Last year in fiscal 20, we had 85,000 built in for paying a consultant to staff our traffic management center that's housed at the real-time crime center. So we got all our signals run into there in the central server, as well as all the video. So we had a staff there 5 days a week throughout the day to sit there and work on signal timing, answer CSBs relate to signal timing, and monitor our traffic signals and our video. That was in the previous years paid for through a federal grant for transportation, one of those CMAQ grants that you've heard about. It paid for all but 9 months of fiscal 20. That 85,000 was to bridge the last final 3 months. And that's what we are doing out of that fiscal 20 budget. We actually asked for 250,000 for fiscal 21 to be able to staff that for 12 months since that federal grant is over. And it's kind of a one-off. You can't keep going for another federal grant to sustain ongoing maintenance. They let you do it when you start. So that CMAQ grant built us that TMC in the real-time crime center, and associated with it, they give you kind of a startup money to have people staff it. But after that, you're on your own. So it was always our intent to fund that staffing through the consultants. And these are guys that we're not going to be able to hire at the city as far as that specialty and for what we're paying. And it's just stuff we can't do internally on our own to that level. So that we had 250,000 put in to sustain that with the intent of doing it every year. But like I said, bad timing with Corona kicking in. So we didn't get it. We didn't get our request for that 250,000. In 513, our towing division, obviously responsible for towing vehicles from right of way. We have currently authorized for 28 positions. 22 of those are filled, so that's 6 vacant, about 21% vacancy. Our proposed fiscal 21 budget is about 1.9 million. That's about a 2% increase from fiscal 20. Not much change there. We did have the addition of an administrative assistant 2 late in fiscal 20. And we were cut the commissioner of towing position. We're not authorized as proposed fiscal 21 budget shows for that position. We had that position filled for a couple months in fiscal 20, but we failed the working test period for that position. It just wasn't working out. We did not request that it be cut. It is cut as shown on the proposed budget. 514, our maintenance division. Our street maintenance division, we're responsible for paving, potholes, street cleaning, flood protection, snow and ice removal, debris cleanup. We're currently authorized for 162 positions. 114 of those are filled, 48 vacant. So that's about a 30% vacancy. That's our heaviest hit in terms of vacancy. Unfortunately, that's one of the heavier responsibilities for the department is in 514. So that kind of hurts as far as an existing vacancy. Our proposed fiscal 21 budget is about 8.5 million. That is a 5% decrease from fiscal 20. On the personnel side, I believe we were cut 1 vacant HEO2 and 3 vacant utility workers. And from materials, compared to last fiscal year, we were cut an additional 85,000 in chemicals and for snow and ice removal. No real change in contractual and other services besides that in 514. In 516, our refuse division, obviously responsible for solid waste, yard waste, and recycling, collections, and bulk pickup. We're currently authorized for 149 positions. 123 of those are filled, 26 vacant, so that's a 17% vacancy rate. Unfortunately, a heavy percentage of those vacant positions are refuse drivers. I think we're at about 50 employed right now. So, I mean, that's a majority of those vacant positions are our drivers. Proposed fiscal 21 budget is about 19.2 million. That's about a 0.8 decrease from fiscal 20, so about the same. Really not much of our accounts changed. We still are showing, for what we show as a fleet, and our fleet account is for our cash payments for trucks that were planned. As you guys recall, with the trash fee increase, we were able to start up and implement a 10-year upgrade program for our 80 trucks in refuse to take their average age down from 10 plus years down to, I think the goal was 6.5 years. So we're several years into it. We bought about 30 trucks. So the budget amounts you see in our debt service and our fleet account are the combination of cash purchases for trucks and our lease purchase amounts for trucks, as well as paying down some of our previous lease purchase in the debt service account. So we're several years into a 10-year plan, and everything's been going great. The trucks are not the issue now. It's actually fixed one thing, and we still have the other thing that was never quite fixed before, was filling our vacancies, department-wide and especially in our refuse drivers. That about wraps up what I had in general for you guys. If you guys want to ask any specific questions related to that.
Thank you, James. What we will do is we're going to go around, and I'll remind the committee, this is about the budget. If you have any service requests, potholes, things that have not been done, you call Mr. Fortune after the meeting. We'll keep the questions pertinent to just what Jamie's discussing today, and that's budgets. All right, with that, we will go to Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jamie, I took a few notes here, and I'll be very brief. As I looked at your increase and decreases, it appeared as though those are categories that we probably will be okay for the first year in dealing with this, but we should have a plan later on to make sure that we take care of those for you. And most especially, I'm talking about your refuse drivers and some of the work that needs to be done with the $250,000 that you need for real time. We want to make sure that later on we get that taken care of. But I wanted to ask you one question pertaining to the preparedness for getting these positions filled. Are you working with MoDOT and the Missouri Department of Training through Rolla, University of Rolla?
Are you talking about like attending career fairs and things in that nature?
No, they actually can provide you with grants to get people trained and ready for jobs. I've brought them here a couple of times.
Yeah, I will try anything. I've just been dealing with the list we're provided through the personnel.
Okay, well, we can talk about that offline, and I can help you with that. I've brought them here for several different types of positions and got training and people hired. So we can talk about that. But other than that, I do want to give you compliments for your staff. When we interact with them, I don't know about anybody else, but I get professionalism, and I'm very proud of the way they service and talk to my residents. So Zach and Randy and all you guys, I just want to say thank you. And I do know that we are currently still behind about a year on some of the paving that we had budgeted for. So hopefully the weather will be better and staff will be better and we can get caught up. I thank you all so much. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Vaccaro, you're up.
Right, no issues with the budget, and I will keep the comments then, because I had the same thing about hopefully they catch up with the paving that was promised last year, actually the year before. So I'll just mute myself back.
Thank you. All right, Alderman McCarl, thank you very much. Alderwoman Howard.
I have a question about you had mentioned your chart on drivers for the refuse. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, I believe our current TO shows we are authorized for 69 refuse drivers, and we currently have a
55, yeah.
mid-50s. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just, in other words, apparently you're still able to pick up the trash, and we are fortunate that we saved the trash police, the environmental investigation unit. I'm happy to hear that. Hopefully we can recruit some more drivers and get you full. Is it an ongoing issue?
It is, and it is, and it always has been. What ends up in reality happening is they use their off day on Wednesday to get any routes that haven't been picked up yet. I will say the priority on a daily basis is making sure we get the carts because that's when people roll out. The things that we make up on Wednesday or on weekends are generally the alley collections, anything that we can't get to. So it's on an overtime basis. I will note again that for fiscal 21 budget, we're not cutting any of those vacancies. So we're still authorized for those full 69 positions, albeit our challenge is still to fill those positions.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can recruit some people now that, these are hard times, but hopefully we can fill those. Thank you. And that's all I have. And thank you for the job you guys do. I appreciate it. You're always very, very responsive. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. I don't have many questions right now. I'm just because I'm multitasking, but I just would like to get more information on the vacancies and what the process would be going forward to fill those. And I guess I would hope in regards to a lot of the operations that I think it should be more communication with like your street workers and stuff, because during this whole Corona situation, we got so many calls and so many employees felt that they weren't being heard and concerned about it. And I know that that's not how we operate as a city. So I just hope that going forward, there'll be some efforts to further boost morale among the workers, because every day I got a call regarding how they felt they weren't being treated right. So that's all I have for now. And I just hope that going forward, we could do something to foster better relationships with the staff and the administration, and so that our city can continue to move forward and move smoothly regarding our different. And that's all I have.
All right, Alderwoman, thank you very much. Alderwoman Murphy.
Thank you for a job well done. Thank you.
That be it? Okay.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jamie, for the presentation. Chairman, I'd like to make a request a little outside of this presentation, but just for our ease and being able to go through this budget online. And that's to have the budget given to us in a searchable document. I know we have a scanned PDF, but you can't do a search for street, for example. It's just a scanned version of the PDF. If we could have the original, I think it would be helpful just as we're kind of going through this. Jamie, I try to follow along with you going through the budget line item, which I was able to do, but just becomes a little complicated. You have so many different accounts here, and the street department it becomes a little bit cumbersome. I know you don't prepare this budget, but it is a little hard to follow, the totals for the various accounts. It can be a little difficult. I've been getting some questions from the general public who happen to be tuning in, and they're a little bit confused by that. it does get very complicated with all the different accounts. I want to talk about towing really quickly. It's one of the issues that many of us as aldermen get a lot of requests about, getting derelict cars removed from streets. I know you do your best with the funding that you get. The $2.9 million that is allocated to the towing division. Can you talk about the revenue that's generated from the tow department? How does that compare?
From fiscal 19, a full year, fiscal year's worth of revenue, from towing fees, we get about 1.5 million per year. And from our auctions, we get about 1.8 million per year. Just for reference, I had that jotted down here.
So that's a little over $3 million in revenue generated from the tow division. I don't want to use that as a revenue generator, obviously, but I just know that we struggle to get cars removed from the streets, and want to make sure that your department has everything you need to be able to do that. Is there, and considering that's not a department that loses money, I think we should maybe consider moving forward a way that we can make sure that you have the additional space and to be able to house all those. So many derelict cars littering our streets, it really becomes difficult, especially during COVID. During COVID, we've had cars just kind of piling up, at least in Grabway Park to some extent. But I always appreciate the call you guys and getting, a car removed without having to go wait in the queue. So with regards to the streets department in a general sense, we have a lot of many of our streets in the city are old and have a lot of maintenance issues. Do we have a mapping of the age of the streets in the city to understand better what we maybe should as a city be putting for infrastructure? I know that's a wish list that we can't fill right now, especially given budgetary concerns, but do we keep track of the age of streets and the last time they've been paved and that sort of thing?
I think we have a database. I thought Ken had shared that with you before. We could send something currently with where we're at as far as when it was last paved citywide.
That would be helpful just to understand. I know that by some
probably
account,
more of a database than a map, I guess.
Yes.
But I guess that's, if it's a database, then it can somehow be mapped, so we can. That's something we could look at doing with some of the IT folks.
I think, considering, I realize you get a significant budget, but it's, I think recognizing it's not enough to adequately repave the streets throughout the city. And it becomes an issue, with just living on a street that hasn't been paved for a long time. So just understanding the breadth of that issue would be super helpful. We're unique in the city of St. Louis in that we rely on ward capital to do a lot of our paving. And so it's directed by the alderman rather than the street department. So it's kind of a double-edged sword for you all, who doesn't necessarily get to decide every street paving in the city, but maybe the responsibility falls in your lap.
Yeah, I guess everyone knows we're funded to patch everything, and we're funded, the funding for the overall paving comes from the alderman. So that is you can't really have too much of a paving plan when it comes through a request to the alderman. So that is an issue.
Yeah, I think it's something that our constituents don't necessarily understand, and it's just an unusual situation for a city's streets department to be organized that way. Well, I'll leave the additional questions I have for some offline conversation, if you don't mind, Jamie. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Chairman. I have no further questions.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Director, I think you guys do a terrible job. I'm kidding. I am absolutely kidding. You guys do great. Does Zach get a raise?
I think I requested it, but it didn't get approved, so it wasn't because of me. I'm just kidding.
Okay. We need to fix that. We need to fix that. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Director.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would echo my colleagues' sentiments. Mr. Wilson, I think the street department operates in a very professional environment, and I've always been very happy with the responsiveness and the way you guys execute on work with what little you have. So I appreciate that. I got just a few questions on the implementation of the new program of the blocking of streets and sidewalk permitting. Can you go over those numbers one more time for me in terms of the cost of operating that vis-a-vis the fees and permit fees it will generate?
Sorry, I had to find my mute button. So we bumped up by 75% our charges to the high volume arterials and the downtown area bounded by Jefferson to the west, I believe Washington to the north, Shoto to the south, and the river to the east. So instead of paying $20 for a curb lane, you're paying 75% more, and for an additional traffic lane, instead of paying $30 per lane per day, you're paying 75% more. And that's, again, just in those high areas. So with that projected income, the math for the board bill, I looked at just the downtown and downtown west historical amounts for permits, because that was easily searchable instead of capturing the arterials. And just by the downtown and downtown west historical blocking permits, if we increase those, which are in the areas I described as the new high volume area, that would justify those three positions. So I was being slightly conservative, knowing that we will get more revenue than that because of them being applied to the arterials. So the worst case, in the historical values for the downtown and downtown west, we covered the justification for those three positions.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Excellent. I also want to commend you on taking advantage of the low-cost loans through the Department of Natural Resources, as you guys are extinguishing some debt schedules, and also I guess the loan agreement you have with the Missouri's Economic Development Corporation or division with the street light change out. And I think, do you know, you guys have effectively changed out almost over half of all the street lights from the old Cobra heads to LED, and then the savings realized, to my understanding, sort of pays that loan that we've gotten.
Yeah, you're correct. Actually, we're right about just over half of the citywide have been changed out to LED, and through those $3 million in that loan, we are able to start paying those back in our savings because of our lower power consumption.
Great.
Yep.
Great. That's a good use of program and an excellent ability to be flexible with a low cost of capital. So good job there. I mean, this is a random question, but how many street lights does the city have? Do you know?
Over 50,000.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So that's a commendable effort. You've changed almost over half those. Excellent. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. With that, we'll move to Alderwoman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for being present at this meeting. And I wanted to first recognize Keith Moore, Eric, your refuge driver, Randy, and Zach, because they have done tremendously well. And so they do work in partnership with the residents in trying to ensure that they get the trash, and we are working tight with the trash task force. So we're keeping them pretty busy and on their toes due to all the dumping that we're getting. But my question I have, you have 6 vacant towing positions. So what's the qualifications for that besides having a CDL?
2 of those 6 are the actual drivers. Can't you recall some of the requirements offhand, or we have to look it up?
All it is CDL. I'm not even sure if we're requiring CDL currently, but some recent towing experience.
Okay, some recent towing experience. Okay. And then I know that Randy was having a challenge with the trash drivers due to, especially with the new trucks, you all were trying to get them trained so they could work it, but a lot of people couldn't get through that process. So are you still having that challenge?
No, we have the challenge people first applying. I don't know about challenge getting through the process. We do have folks that come in, but whether by competition with the private haulers, we can't compete as far as wages or requiring them to work, or I mean, requiring them to live in the city is often an obstacle that we see with the ability to get people to apply.
Okay, that's why I think it's so critical that we continuously keep supporting our city employees because of the salary challenges. And so a lot of times we'll have people that may have the experience, but like you said, the private companies or the county companies will pull them from us. And so that's why I really push for us to make sure that we recognize employees and make sure that they're not forgotten when it comes time for raises. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman. And Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, any questions of Dr. Wilson?
Dr. Wilson, since you all weren't able to get the additional 250,000, are you all going to be able to sustain that program?
I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Since you all were unable to get the additional 250,000.
We're having audio problems, Shamim.
I think she was asking about the 250,000 in traffic division.
Okay. All right. Andre, anything we can do to fix that, or is it on her end?
No, that's on her end. So it's a connection on her end.
Okay.
She could type her question in, but
Okay.
problem on her end.
Maybe we can send Shamim a text, let her know she's having problems. If
Yeah.
Are we there? Marlene?
Yes.
Go ahead, Marlene.
I just wanted to add a couple of things that I thought about while I was listening to everyone else. So, Jamie, I do know that our towing problems have mainly been because we had two towing systems, one with the police department and one with our city departments. But I believe you all have finally gotten that cleared up. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I do know that most of our residents know and understand that because you all went out of your way to make sure either you attended meetings, sent the information, and our NSOs have been sharing that information at neighborhood meetings. The other thing too that I wanted to look at is to share that all of our city streets is not required to come out of our budgets because some of our streets are MoDOT streets, and those are taken care of with different funding. And those are major arteries in the city. And just for clarity for any public that is listening, is that correct?
It broke up there for a second. I believe MoDOT does maintain their streets as far as paving. We don't pave those.
Right, and those are most of our major streets that run the entire length of the city, like Natural Bridge and some others. So those things that we just want to make sure the public has a better understanding of exactly what is going on. And then for the information as far as us sharing more and/or having committees in our neighborhoods that really learn the processes and take ownership for it. It really works better, I know, from my experience with your department and your representatives, because they will give you the exact information. They can relate to their neighbors that it's been reported, somebody's working on it, and it kind of calms everybody's expectations because they know more and they feel better about it. So I wanted to share that because I do know that that is mainly how you all operate. And it's not all, we don't always have time as alderpersons to make sure each and every complaint has the absolute to it, because we have a large area to take care of. But on the other hand, when we're all working in partnership and making sure that residents have all the information, it really works out better. But I just wanted to share that because I didn't want people to think that every street that we pave comes out of our capital budgets.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have we been able to get Alderwoman Clark Hubbard back online?
No, I did text her and she said that she's going to go back home. She had just left the house and I think that's why our signal started breaking up. So she said she'll be back on. All right.
Thank you, Andre. Okay, we do have received a text. Alderman Jeffrey Boyd from the 22nd is in attendance here, and he requested to ask a question of Dr. Wilson. So Alderman Boyd.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Good morning, Dr. Wilson, huh? I haven't heard that before. How you doing, Dr. Wilson?
I'm doing well.
I just have a few questions. As far as towing, it's my understanding that we hadn't been booting cars or towing booted cars for a while. Can you tell us the last time that you guys towed booted cars?
Kent was just saying it's been about a year.
It's been about a year. Okay. The other question is, as relates to speed humps, the last time you appeared before the street committee, we talked about a new strategy of bringing in-house those surveys or whatever you call it to justify whether a street need a speed hump or not. Are we moving in that direction?
Yeah, I'm working on right now a revision to traffic calming policy. It's in progress right now. I can share more in a bit. I'll speak with you about that.
So we will have funding in your budget to support I think we talked about 2 people that will go out. Most of their time will just be spent doing traffic calming studies, correct?
That is not currently in our budget right now, but more will make sense as I hammer out this policy and we discuss it.
Okay, but will the policy require financial resources?
If it does, it will be through the on-call consultants, as they have the capacity to keep up with that type of stuff.
But if we outsource it, I think what we came up with was we came to the conclusion that it would be cheaper to do it in-house, because I think the number that was floated out there was like $90,000 a study, not 90,000, $9,000 a study, correct?
I think it was about $1,000 per location. I guess it depends on the amount of locations each request is. Some may be as much as that if there's multiple locations.
Oh, so basically it's $1,000 per location.
That is from memory. I thought that's through Board of Public Service. When they negotiate it with the consultants as basically a unit cost per speed study location, I believe it was about $1,000.
To intervene, I have, I believe, like 19 locations, and the amount of money they wanted me from was a little hair over $20,000. So you're pretty right on there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, last question. Since it's a proposal to take away all of the ward capital, how would that impact paving and streets and alleys and the 50/50 sidewalk program? How would that be impacted?
You will still have your St. Louis Works money, but as far as ward capital as an additional resource for that, you won't. But yeah, there is not a separate line item that we're getting for paving in substitution for ward capital funds, but you do get your St. Louis Works.
Here, I'll step in here for 2 seconds on this. I mean, it's the same thing we've kind of seen for the last 10 years.
Oh, Ken, we recognize your voice, Kent, but for the general public, please introduce yourself.
Yep, this is Kent Flake, City St. Louis Streets, Commissioner Streets. So long story short, you know, we've kind of seen this over the last 10 years. And this is even worse than what we've kind of seen over the last 10 years. Hopefully it doesn't last nearly as long. Over the last 10 years, paving dollars went down for all 28 of you. And as the paving dollars are limited, we obviously pave less, which in turn causes a lot more potholes and other street issues. We end up spending as much, if not more money on in the long run. So, like I said, we've been seeing this since 08, 09. You guys, at some point kind of got your capital dollars back up to kind of where they were decent. And, you know, it was kind of, as I think Kara mentioned earlier, or Alderman Spencer mentioned earlier, is, you know, we've got a lot of patchwork out there, a lot of patchwork, not a whole lot of paving. And, you know, that kills us on the labor end, kills us on the material, pothole material end. And so, yeah, it doesn't help any of us out, but it's kind of part of the COVID.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you guys' time, and I do want to, you know, jump in and give compliments to the street department. I think you guys do a great job. You're very professional. I appreciate all the work that I've seen done in the 22nd ward. I know my constituents was pleased as well, especially how you guys have been reorganized with refuse and doing the not the bulk pickup, but the illegal dumping. I think the way that system has been put in place is very effective, and I want to commend and applaud you guys for that. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Alderman Boyd. Jamie, Dr. Wilson, I should say, Kent, everyone, I thank you for attending. Now, when it comes to these, this need for trash drivers, is it that no one's applying, or the people applying aren't qualified, or is it just that you can't find anyone to apply for these jobs?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I'm sure we can get more, and so we were kind of internally excited about the fact maybe residency could be lifted to see if that would help impact our ability to attract more people to apply here. I'll say we don't always get the most skilled folks that end up being able to hang in by either voluntarily choosing to leave once they got a taste of driving the trash truck and then seeing the money over the rainbow over on the private side, or the ones that chose to stay. We've determined internally that would do more damage than good, keeping them on when they didn't seem qualified at that point in time versus what people traditionally are at the same point of training. So we're getting kind of a combination of all of those.
Okay. It's just what's occurring, you know, I guess it's like deja vu from all over again, as they say. Last year, it was the same thing. We don't have enough employees. And it just seems that you're the first department head that's come in, and it's already come up once more. So I appreciate your input. I appreciate all the guys, what you're doing for the lack of paving right now. For you older people, you can do what I do. A pothole is an inverted speed bump. So it's a traffic calming device. I tell them for temporary purposes. All right, Dr. Wilson, I appreciate your time. The rest of your staff, thank you all very much. And we are actually ahead of schedule again. So we will take a little intermission. You guys are excused from the street department. Go out and fix some holes. Thanks.
You got it. Thank you very much, guys.
All right. All right. Do we have the Parks Director anywhere around? They're probably not ready yet. So we have about 15 minutes. Everyone will take a 15-minute break. Is that all right with you, Andre?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, everyone do what we need to do, and I'll be back here at 11:20 on screen. Thank you. All right, we will be calling the meeting back to session. I believe we have Director Hayes and his staff online. Greg, are you there?
Alderman, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. I believe we all should be able to hear you.
Okay, so, all right, well, Chairman, am I ready to proceed?
Yeah, if you have anyone else who's going to be speaking with your staff, just remind them to introduce themselves before they would, if they're going to answer a question or help you with anything, okay?
Will do. Chairman, Alderman, and Alderwomen of the Ways and Means Committee, I definitely appreciate your time today, and I hope everyone and their families are staying safe with these challenging, unprecedented times. This is Greg Hayes, the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry. Just so people aren't talking over each other, I'm going to announce the other folks who are on the call, and when they speak, they'll announce their names. Alan Jankowski, Commissioner of Forestry. Bill Bixson, Program Manager, Recreation. Tim Hagley, Commissioner of Parks. Kathy Sullivan, Executive Assistant in the Director's Office. Mary Lou Green, Program Manager, Brightside St. Louis. And unfortunately, Evelyn Rice has a family matter she is attending to most of today. We will brief her later, and she will be available for questions post-meeting at any time, starting probably tomorrow. So, to start, overall, the Parks, Recreation, Forestry, Soulard Market, Brightside St. Louis budget, we're always hovering around 20 million. I'm going to start with Parks, and I'm going to go Forestry, Recreation, Soulard, Brightside, and wrap it up for questions. So Parks right now is sitting at about a $9.2 million budget. Kim Hagley, as always with our efforts, tried to stay lean, and when we were in the black on some line items, she did cut some line items down to more reasonable amounts just to be fiscally responsible. She does have vacancies that we're trying to fill: plumber, mechanical maintenance worker, utility worker, park supervisor, equipment operator, to name a few. Now, those are vacancies. Obviously, with COVID-19, we have a hiring freeze. The biggest concern, and I'm going to be succinct as possible here because I'm more interested in questions. The biggest concern with Kim, and she can elaborate on other things later, is the loss of $500,000 in this budget for emergency rec center repairs. Those are critical funds that we had maybe one fiscal year in the last 10 fiscal years where they were cut due to fiscal concerns. But those are for unexpected repairs at our 7 rec centers. You could have boiler issues, any type of utility-related units, et cetera, broken windows, what have you. The loss of those funds, if something happens at a rec center, we do not know where those funds will come from. So that $500,000 is a real concern of losing that money. So that's essentially Parks. Let me move to Forestry. Forestry's biggest, we always have tree trimmer vacancies. The committee's well aware of that. We now have some forestry foreman vacancies. You can't send folks out on the street who tree trimmer may be their first job without some supervision. So Alan's got some vacancies. The biggest concerns with so I don't need to drone on about vacancies in forestry that you're well aware of. The biggest concern in forestry is the reduction of per performance monies in 5112, which is about a $300,000+ reduction. Those are the folks we hire, utility workers, from April through September. And fortunately, with a big push on grass maintenance last year, we actually cut through October. The loss of over $300,000 is damaging. If we want to continue the pace we did last year, which was well received citywide, cutting the vacant buildings and lots, then we need those funds. In addition, there's another $350,000. And granted, I am cognizant of the difficult times we're in. I want to be respectful of that. But 5659 is an account with professional services that we do neighborhood grass cutting with some contracts. We use it for overtime, supplementing overtime Forestry's budget in overtime has pretty much been static for the last decade, hovering around 215,000, not nearly enough of what we need. So we're talking upwards of a $700,000 cut in forestry. Last year, forestry did more than they did 3 completed vacant building rotations, which is unprecedented. We usually struggle to barely get 2. The lots, we did 7 rotations. We cannot go backwards, in my opinion, for the appearance of our neighborhoods, the public safety in our neighborhoods of letting things just grow and get out of control. So that's a real concern. I've always said we are not an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday business in forestry. If funds avail, we are a 6-day-a-week operation and as many pay periods as we can, 10-hour days. That's just to keep up with having a decent product out there. So that's forestry. Recreation, obviously there's the reality of summer camps and pools right now. It's an ongoing discussion. Recreation in 1010 budget is about a $2 million operation, with some of those funds coming from CDA for programming. We also have the Prop P funds 1125, which is youth-oriented programs, which we did this past summer, the summer before, for private entities to come in and assist our rec staff and do contracts. That went well. Those contracts right now are tabled. The $340,000 was taken out of per performance 1010 account 5112, but we noticed that $340 was put in 1125 Prop P, so we're okay with that. The final crux with some line item cuts is we can work with this recreation budget. We are not dismayed by it, and we can make it happen. There's just uncertainty with the next 6 months, so to speak. Finally, to wrap up our department budget, Soulard Market, for the most part, the last decade or more since Parks took it over, has been in the black, with revenue exceeding costs of the budget for a very lean operation. Before that, it was in the red every year. I don't want to sound braggadocious, but those are the realities. The only thing we're concerned about, we of course had to our budget went up because we had to pay folks $15 an hour, which is good for those folks. But I had put in $30,000 for security services. Soulard Market has no security unless the rangers are available. I really have never heard of an operation where you have vendor-customer exchanges, and we all know, we've been to the market, there's cash there. There's no security. We're sitting ducks there, and there are some homeless issues. With all due respect to homeless, there's no security. So I went to Securitas, who has existing contracts with the city, and wanted to amend it and jump on there and just put $30,000 a year in Soulard to have some security presence, and it looks like it was eliminated.
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but I just got off the phone with Gerard. I'm having a hard time understanding what document we should be looking at. I want to follow everything you're going through, but I think we're both confused. If you could just, Director, tell me what document I should be following each of these line items with you on. I've got the parks budget and the big budget book, but I want to make sure that when you're talking about these discrepancies, we know I'm following along line by line with you.
Okay, I'm just going on the last information we would have received from the budget division. We did try to print Board Bill 1, but we're not finding our budgets anywhere in there, in the big document.
Okay, should I be looking at the parks, on the budget website, we've got the parks division, that 30-page document, and then I've got the 187-page document that is in Dropbox.
Well,
which one are you looking at, Director? And I'll just go with whatever you're looking at.
I'm going with the individual budgets that each of us got. Kim, what's the date on the budget we got from the budget division? What is it? April 9th is the last thing we're going with from the budget division, individual budgets by division, if that helps.
Is this the 30-page? Okay.
Same thing I've done for the last 5 years.
Got it.
And with all due respect, I don't know what you have in front of you. May 11th, excuse me. May 11th from Paul Payne, individual budgets by division is what we're going with.
Okay, thank you. Excuse
Oh,
me.
I'm sorry. I hope that helps in some way, but we can go back to each individual budget because I'm wrapping up by saying the director's office is pretty much static. We really don't have any comments or concerns about the director's office. And to wrap it up, Brightside St. Louis is a CDA federally funded program, which is static, the same as last year, essentially, so we don't have any concerns. So now that is the gist of my overview, and now I think it's important if we start back, whatever you have for the Parks Division, to answer any questions or concerns, starting with Parks Division of the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry.
All right. Okay, what we'll do, Greg, is then, thank you very much for that presentation. We'll go by seniority, as we typically do with each alderperson on the committee, and let them ask questions of you. So with that, we'll start with Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Greg. What I do want to say is that I don't have any questions per se. I just have a comment to leave with you and others who are listening. As we move through the COVID process and other fundings that are made available and other requirements that we will need in order to protect and provide services to our citizens, there will be some changes, and there will be some changes that will help in your various departments, most especially with recreation and placement for children, school-age children, and pre-K. So as we move forward, I have no concerns now. There's still too much to be considered and too many things that will come down the pike as the federal government also looks at additional funding. So I thank you all for your service. That's it for me.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
So, hey, Greg, so in last year's budget, I believe we allotted enough money, so you should be good on grass cutting until June, right?
Correct.
Because we allotted for that. So after June, in this budget, how many cuttings do you have after June, from June until, it seems to me that the problem might fall into not this summer, but the fall of next, the fall of, the spring of next year. You won't have enough cuttings to go through spring of next year?
Are you referring to forestry or talking about parks or just
No, I'm
in
talking
general,
about,
Alderman Vaccaro?
I'm talking about when you go out, it doesn't pertain too much to the 23rd Ward, but the rotation of cuttings, in a lot of the fields, especially north, the vacant lots. In the budget last year, we allotted all the way through June, so that should have handled everything. But from June, the new budget going forward, how far will that take you out in your cutting? Will that take care of cutting through the summer? And we have, I don't know if you're following my question or not.
I think I am, and I'll have Alan weigh in if I need to. We're okay, Alderman Vaccaro, so to speak, through June 30th. I mean, we're coming upon that. The concerns come when our budget starts July 1, and we'd like to cut at least into October, and we're going to need same amount, or we're going to need money for April, May, June 2021. The concerns are it's going to be very we're going to cut every day, but it's going to be very difficult to reach the numbers in 19 that we reached in 19 in the next cutting season. Very difficult because we're going to be down $700,000.
So that's what I figured. So more, it seems to me like going through the summer months, most likely going to be okay, but we better find, we need to find a
fix. Because once we start getting in October and then the spring of next year is where you're gonna run into the bigger problems. Am I correct on that?
That you are correct, Alderman. We're asking for not more. We're asking for status quo, which is a restoration of approximately $700,000 across those two accounts, and to get us to July of 2021.
Right. That's what I thought. So, one of my hopes, because they pushed the taxes off till they're not due until July the 15th. I'm hoping that as we start to see some of that money come in, some of these things will get restored. Because
I sure hope so. And I'm gonna see if Kim and Alan have any questions. But just as an applied current day real time example, in the past, like in 2018, I think it's pretty understood that we had a very rough summer, especially in parks. Well, Kim is fully staffed now with utility workers. Of course, we have attrition and people that fall off. We are just not seeing the complaints, pretty much non-existent, about our parks across 110 parks across the city, because we have the equipment, and we, thanks to your help too, Alderman, we have the equipment and staff to get the job done. We don't want to go backwards and have what we did in 18. That was very difficult. Kim and Alan, do you have any follow-up comments?
Well, just so you know, Greg, I agree. I have had 0 to no complaints on parks. Kim does a wonderful job. And you know me, I would complain if I had something to complain about. But my concern, and I wrote down the $500,000 you were talking about. Also, my concerns are how we get that put back in place, and even if we don't do it now, and we have to go into the over $30 million in reserves later in the year, because that's far as for emergency stuff. I understand the importance of this. That was my only comment. I wanted to make sure you had enough to get you through the summer months, and as we try to work through this, believe me, I'm on your side, and I do appreciate Kim has been more than helpful for us. So, Joe, I'm just going to mute myself and just listen.
Music to
Thank
my
you for
ears.
those comments, Alderman. We want to do the best we possibly can with the resources we are allotted.
All right, Gregory, thank you. Alderman Vaccaro, thank you very much. We will now move on to Alderwoman Hubbard. Oh, Howard, I'm sorry, Howard.
Howard, we're all the same. Okay.
It sounds like the Three Stooges calling Dr.
Right.
Fine, Dr. Howard,
and
Dr. Fine.
Yeah, Mo Curly Larry. Greg, I was wondering, as this pandemic evolves and we're, in uncharted waters here, I think it's my understanding that you do not intend to open the pools this year. Is that correct?
That is correct. If that changes, I will never put anything on Dr. Eccles in terms of saying, hey, it's just his decision. He informs us with his guidance, and the guidance has been that would not be a prudent thing to open our pools. So, Alderwoman Howard, I think that's a fair assumption right now, and I believe it's been announced that there is no pressing interest to open the pools based on the health department guidance. Correct.
Okay. Now, if you do not open the pools this year for the summer, does that result in any cost savings for your department overall?
Yes, it would. Parks works on the pools, and if we don't need seasonal lifeguards, there would be a cost savings there with folks that we would have to hire to staff the pools. And Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe combined some full-time staff, but mostly per performance staff, the pools from June to August, it's about 25 roughly people to support the pools. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we wouldn't be paying those folks, Alderwoman Howard, because we wouldn't need to seek their hiring.
So would that, I mean, could that money be pushed over to your cutting budget?
I would sure like that if that could happen, yes. And Kim just weighed in. Our savings in parks would be on chemicals, obviously, which I think, what, 50,000 a year? 50,000 a year, roughly. So yes, if that is permissible, that would help.
And I guess the other thing is that, are there any other things that would provide cost savings because of the, in other words, you're not using certain facilities or certain areas that maybe that could be applied over into the cutting budget?
Alderwoman, Bill was anxious to make a comment, then I'm going to follow up to answer your question. Go ahead, Bill.
Just a reminder, when we look at those numbers in that budget, for those types of savings, the pools would still open next June. Obviously, we would assume that they're going to open next June. So while you can't look at the item line as a full line item of savings, because we would still need that money when the pools open next June.
Right.
Last month of the fiscal year next year.
Yeah, it'd be 1 month of the fiscal year next June, but ideally we'd open them as soon as St. Louis Public Schools or wrap up their year, assuming that's the same, which is a big assumption. But yes, there's other funds. We have contracts, upwards of 15 to 16 contracts with private providers for this past summer that are tabled, as I spoke of. If those contracts are a 100% guarantee not to go through E&A, there could be some funds to help out the rest of to the end of this calendar year, so to speak, with cutting, if it's in fact permissible to transfer those. I do not know offhand if that would be permitted.
Okay, and I guess that's a question for the budget director. But I think as this unfolds, I think we have to be, as they say, nimble in responding to these needs as they go. And, none of us has that magic crystal ball. So I think, maybe if we can maybe get through till August and see how things go and continue cutting. And then if we have to appropriate more money, maybe we'll have the money, as the Alderman Vaccaro mentioned, that maybe we'll start seeing some revenue. Would that be amenable to you?
Yes. And Kim and Alan and I meet weekly with Todd, and Todd has been very supportive of knowing we've been full bore since March 17th. We're probably 98% working every day, and we're using as much precaution as we possibly can. So where I'm going with this is, it's been business as usual, thankfully, for cutting our parks and our vacant lots and buildings and easements. And so we're appreciative of that, knowing it's dire all over the place. So I'd be amenable to that, yes.
Okay. And I just want to compliment the parks crew. I took my walk this morning and they were down there at Christie Park, trimming, blowing. I mean, the park looks beautiful. Thank you so much. That's all I have, Chairman.
Thank you. And I would be supportive of using any untapped pool funds for grass cutting. Thank you.
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Now, Alderwoman Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I don't have any questions, but I just want to commend the Parks Department for going above and beyond to keep our grass cut during this time. And the story is similar to Alderwoman Howard. I live directly across the street from Loretta Hall Park. And throughout the entire Fifth Ward, you all have always done an amazing job in keeping our parks together. So I want to thank you and your workforce for a great job. That's all I have.
Alderwoman, thanks for the praise, and I'll relay it to our staff who are responsible and deserving of it. And it was nice to see you on site at Loretta Hall, and that's going to be a great project moving forward. So we appreciate your support as a department.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to Alderwoman Murphy.
Oh, yeah. No questions. I would reiterate what my colleague said, Alderwoman Davis. There are so many things that we don't, know for sure yet. And so we just have to wait and see. I personally have the utmost confidence in your department to do the best it can with the revenue it does receive. And on that note, I said Cronolette Park, which I'm blessed to live close to. It looks excellent. It looks beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderwoman Murphy. Would not be possible without the support of others to keep our operation going full tilt. Thank you.
I agree. Very good. Excellent work.
Thank you, Alderwoman. We'll now move on to Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Hayes, for being here. I also want to echo my thanks to you and your department, and add how sorry we were to hear just a month ago the loss of one of your employees in such a tragic manner, serving our constituents here. The job that many of your employees do is very dangerous, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
So it sounds like the biggest unmet need is that $500,000 for and can you walk us through again what your most critical unmet needs with this budget are, just from a top level perspective?
Yes. I would say the lion's share, Alderwoman Spencer, would be that 700,000. I throw that out. That's probably close figure. 700,000 that we would like restored to the Forestry Division budget for grass cutting, and that would be what we currently have in place now in our current budget. The $500,000 for parks, we don't. Now, I'm sure the comptroller has an itemized budget of every dime we've spent out of that fund over the last 10 years, but I would contend that we don't spend it on fluff. Now, I'm sure we paid for some painting at some rec centers with these great improvements we've seen thanks to the bonds with the rec center improvements. So that 500,000 plus the 700,000 in forestry are important. If something breaks at a rec center, boiling it down to that level, Kim has always used those funds to do those repairs. They're not pretty, but they're critical. So without any funds there, that would be a hardship. And I don't want to say this is paramount, but I do want to say $30,000 in that security contract for Soulard Market. I'd be fooling you if I said it's critical, but I do feel it's very important that we put that in there. I know it may seem a pittance and maybe not everybody would agree that's critical, but I think that 30,000 plus the 500 plus the 700, those are our top level needs. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the social distancing, if the market's going to be open this summer, there may be some issues that you may have there. These are the funds that come out of the general fund. Is that right? Or is that parks bond, the sales tax funding that we get that goes into parks? Is that a separate set of expenditures?
All the aforementioned that I just mentioned, Alderwoman, are 1010 general fund funds.
Okay, and the dedicated sales tax that we have going for our parks, is that in a separate set of funds?
Yes, those are all, we have what I'd call specialized funds. Kim, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, those are funds that have special stipulations. We've gone through the 25% match and using it north end of Delmar. Those are those funds that come out of those tax funds.
Is there any way to use some of those funds to set aside for the rec center improvements, or that, the 500,000? I'm trying to find ways to make sure that you get the 1.2 million that you pointed out is necessary.
Right. So I did recently get permission from the comptroller's office to use out of neighborhood parks funds for a recreation center. So I think it's possible. I don't know to what degree. I'd have to talk to her again about that. I don't normally do that. So when I presented it to her a couple weeks ago, it was more of a one-time ask, but I can definitely go back and talk to her about that and respond back.
I know for
Now, this is Greg again. We can definitely do that, Alderwoman. At times, obviously, it can involve, I guess, legality or ordinance oversight where we can or can't.
So it's helpful if we can direct an ordinance to help you be able to do that. Let us know. I know for me, my ward, if you need a ward capital matching, I'd be happy to make sure that I set aside some money to make sure that we have those emergency funds. At least we may be able to do that in some wards who have some ward capital. But I hear your point on that. With regards to the rec centers, do we anticipate them being open? To what capacity? Are we expecting some of the summer camps and other things, other amenities that we offer our constituents this summer? I know it's going to be a challenge, and I know a lot of that has to do with the recommendations of our health director, but curious if we anticipate those the rec centers being open this summer.
As of right now, the rec centers are closed. I don't want to be trite and silly here, facetious. They are closed. There are some discussions going on of how we could utilize. Of course, we want our rec centers open yesterday, so to speak, but we can't do that protocol-wise. But there are discussions going on about if, in fact, we can open them and when, of what we could do in there with the children that go in there. So that I don't believe it's a situation where we have said the rec centers without a doubt categorically will be closed all summer. I don't believe decision's been made. And Bill Bixson and Evelyn Rice are having discussions with whoever can talk about those issues. And we are working on social distancing plans at the rec centers because we just don't want 6 or 7 closed buildings. And they would look different. It would look different of our plans or what we'd be doing. It would definitely look different. But we'd rather have open buildings with a good conscious effort of social distancing for our kids to have an outlet.
Well, we do want you to be able to mow the parks. As my colleagues mentioned, we're grateful that you're able to do that right now. I think as we continue some level of social distancing and staying home, people will need to get out of their houses this summer, and parks could be a good place to maybe do that safely. So that $700,000 would seem very important to make sure you get. If we can get creative on how we're doing the rec center maintenance, with aldermanic involvement, or we want to make sure that you have what you need. So please keep us abreast on that.
Will do. And Bill Bixson, he specifically has some great ideas of how to do things with the children in our parks, which usually you'd say, they're always in the rec centers. Open air, social distancing, small groups, supervised. He's been tasked with doing that, and he's got some great ideas if they can reach fruition at some point this summer.
So, and if we don't do the pools, you mentioned the $50,000 in savings in the chemicals, but is there, there's a lot of manpower through lifeguards and keeping the lights on and other things. Is there any additional savings in that we could move over to mowing? I hate to do that, but these are, as you mentioned, unprecedented times.
Yes. Hey, Bill, I don't want to put Bill on the spot with something he may not know offhand, but we could certainly follow up with the committee quickly. Bill, do you have a ballpark figure of if we don't have to hire the lifeguards seasonally? If he doesn't have it handy, we can definitely get that ballpark figure of what those cost savings would be.
Okay.
Probably
and even though
he's got an answer.
About $60,000 in payroll if we didn't hire lifeguards over, the July 15th, July 30th payroll, and maybe the first 2 weeks of August, so the first 4 pay periods of the summer of the fiscal year.
That's it for the whole staffing of all 3 outdoor, I guess there's 4 pools. One of them's indoor.
We have 4 indoor pools and 3 outdoor pools.
Yeah, I just figured lifeguards times 40 hours a week times $15 an hour times 4 pay periods. It's about $60,000.
Wow, that's not as much as I thought it would be. We just a thought as well with those employees. Many of the, at least the management staff at Marquette, I know are consistent from year to year. If there's any way we can plug them into other city employment opportunities for the summer to make sure that we are, as many of my colleagues pointed out, appreciating our staff, our city staff, that would be helpful, I think.
There's two things going on right now, Alderwoman, since the rec center's closed. Rec center staff are either working in parks actively alongside park employees. We have a 1 or 2 assisting where we have an accounting vacancy. They're assisting in the office, or they're using some of their leave and go ahead, Bill, you had a comment? We have 1 in forestry assisting for a vacancy. So they're either on leave and using some leave, or they're working actively in different roles.
It's great to hear. So, if there's any way we can be creative on that maintenance fund, let us know. And we want to make sure that we're able to keep the parks mowed this summer. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your work, Director Hayes, and your staff.
Thank you very much.
Questions of the Parks Director? Alderman Mohammed.
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman. If I have any, I will direct them to the director or one of his 3 commissioners directly. No further questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hayes and team, thanks for coming on the phone today to chat. I just real quickly, I wanted to make sure that I have accuracy around the $700,000 in forestry that hopefully we can try to restore. That correlates directly to seasonal help, employees. In other words, brass tacks, how does that help cut the grass and maintain the same level? Is it contributed to equipment and employees?
No equipment, just staff, Alderman Oldenburg. It would involve the people we hire to cut grass citywide, April through September. And now we're starting to talk October, since we had an unbelievable season last year. And then it's basically labor cost, overtime costs, and that's it. Alan, is that accurate?
Yeah, and we also hired some small contractors to cut to vacant lots. So we spent roughly about $140,000 in contracts last year.
Got it.
Including this.
And that's all. Go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead, Director Hayes. Go ahead.
Just going to say, we do have a contractor that cuts due to need. A contractor that cuts a couple parks for the park division. And as you folks are aware, we have a contractor that does work in forestry on vacant buildings to assist us, not to supplement us, but to assist us.
Got it. Okay. And that's all, that 700,000 is all really just grass maintenance, not necessarily tree trimming operation.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, perfect. No further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Hayes.
Thank you, Alderman.
All right, thank you, Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Boyd, any questions of the Parks and Forestry?
I don't have really questions, because I literally talk to Alan and Kim weekly, so we have a love relationship here. So we already know what we're doing, and I just
the feelings are mutual.
I just want to thank you all for what you all are doing and working hard. And my condolences goes out to the staff that you had lost. And so I guess my question that I might have is, and I hear where you were trying to look at other ways to collect money to kind of substantiate the grass cutting piece. And so I guess my question is so if you're able to use that money, how much more will you be short once you use that money? And then from the recreation, from the pools and stuff that you don't use, so how much more? Do you have any other avenues that you can pull from to kind of complement that?
Go ahead, if anybody has it.
I think we'd have to spend some time.
I don't have anything on top of mind, Alderwoman.
Okay. That's what
we'd have to look at what your question is. We did jot that down.
Okay. Because I know that you, Kim, and Alan are looking at different areas to see where you can pull some dollars to kind of help alleviate dollars for the grass cutting. But I was just wondering if you all had an opportunity to look at anything that you were trying to do. And so that's the only question I had.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alderwoman. We'll move on to Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Are she
Can you
back
all,
with us?
can you all hear me this time?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm not going to start the video just in case. I don't know if that might have been causing a problem, but I just want to thank the Parks Department for you all the work you're doing, and I would definitely be committed to working with the committee to try to think outside the box and creatively replace the funds that you guys lost. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, Greg. So it looks like the 1.2 is what you're looking for, and I'm guessing the 700,000 is the most important as opposed to the 500. I know that as far as emergency fund, that might be something we can find as it occurs, but it sounds to me like you want it all. I know you.
Yeah,
but,
that I think, Chairman, that's a fair statement. I would say if the emergency repairs aren't close to the 700 in Forestry, they're a not too distant second.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. And we're, and the last of are you talking about security cameras for Soulard? Or are you talking about physical staffing for Soulard when you're talking about security for 30,000?
It'd pretty much be a single staff member working in most of the busiest times. And I think they do have a little bit of extra there with some cameras they can place there, but we wouldn't go above 30,000 if the money was available.
Okay, because if you have, and I think there's ways of finagle. If you're going to save 50,000 on chemicals, and 60,000 on staff, and these are the things we can propose when we're sending this back to the mayor's office and E&A to see what they're going to push some things around for you. But cutting grass and keeping the city as beautiful as you do keep it is important to parks especially. So we'll work hard for you to try and get this done, sir. And I thank you and your staff for all your time, and we'll be taking our lunch break. We're actually 4 minutes over time. Amazing. Director Greg.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Everyone will be back at 1:05. How's that? We will resume our meeting. I'm looking at the screen. Looks like we have enough here. Okay. Dr. Eccles, thank you so much. Will you unmute Dr. Eccles?
Hi, how are you today?
Very, very good, sir. Glad you're here. We will start this off by you doing a presentation, and after that, we'll open up to questions by seniority across the committee. And so away we go, sir. All yours.
All right. To start, I just want to kind of give you an overview of the process that was implemented by the City of St. Louis Department of Health as we work to identify our budgetary needs for the upcoming fiscal year, which is the FY21 fiscal year. So it was an inclusive process. So and we wanted to make sure that we were utilizing, implementing a health view with using a health and racial equity lens. In order to do that, we had to really engage, include all management staff across the City of St. Louis Department of Health to understand, what the gaps were as it relates to positions, funding for certain service categories, et cetera. And so we worked with our fiscal department, who coordinated meetings across the department to make sure that the true needs of the City of St. Louis Department of Health programs could be met, or at least were advocated for during this process. As I mentioned, utilizing health and racial equity lens is really important as we see what's happening or what has happened during the COVID-19 response. We've identified some significant trends, particularly as it relates to the impact of health outcomes for minority populations, economically disenfranchised populations. And so part of our goal is to make sure that we are working to address those areas of improvement that we have identified. And one way to do that is by making sure that our programs are properly funded for the upcoming fiscal year. Overall, the performance of the department has been, over the last few years, have been really good when you look at the staffing pattern for the health department. When I started as the director of health for the city of St. Louis, there were less than 90 positions that were actually filled, which leads to significant issues or questions related to the actual performance of an agency of this size. We're charged to provide public health services for the entire city of St. Louis, which at this point is roughly around 330,000 individuals. And so looking more closely at our staffing pattern and the specific needs that we have as it relates to make sure those programs are properly staffed so that we can do the work that we're required to do as a public health agency is really important. So we also, in addition to looking at the true needs of each program, we also took a look back and reflected on the performance of our agency during the FY20 year. The major gap that we've had over the past year has been really filling positions. That's been for a variety of reasons, but we've actually worked really closely with the Department of Personnel to address those needs. So we've been able to fill positions in a more timely manner and also ensure that staff, once they're onboarded with the department, are properly supported, which has reduced the turnover rate with the department, which has been an issue in the past, which has, again, impacted performance. But as we look at the upcoming FY20 year, there are significant strides that we want to make, and the requests that were proposed by the City of St. Louis Department of Health reflected those true needs. I think you're muted.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, another specific question that you all may have as it relates to different funding centers or account centers for the health department. So what I'll do is entertain your questions and make sure I provide answers to those. And then if there's additional information that I need to provide before the meeting concludes, I'll make sure I do that.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. All right. We will go around by seniority and we'll keep these questions pertaining to the budget, if we all will. And with that, Alderwoman Davis, please start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Davis, I can't hear you. I still can't hear you.
Okay.
That's better.
All right,
okay, that's
Marlene,
better.
there you are. Okay.
Okay. So one of the things that I think most of us are concerned about is that as we are moving through these trying times, that your department has the adequate personnel and additional resources that are required to service our constituency. That to us is the most important thing, because as I looked at last year's budget and also looked at the performance of the department thus far, those things that you said you would do, you have done. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate the moves you have made within your department to bring people's skills to the forefront where they can best serve us. So my question is, as we're looking at the response that we need to have in this emergency situation, do you feel as though between the two acts of funding that are coming our way, and most especially the one is reimbursable, and so people need to realize that we have to spend the money first for the CARES Act, and then for the emergency funding is being budgeted and you currently have an RFP out for, you feel as though you've been able to address the needs as you see them now?
Yeah, so one of the things that I did early on was, I'm always planning, so I'm always thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. And so when I was looking at the data infrastructure for the health department, I identified some gaps. So in the fall of 2019, one of the things that we did was we enhanced our IT infrastructure by executing a contract with Qualtrics. And the initial purpose for that was to enhance our epidemiologists' capacity to analyze data, package data, so that we can provide that information to the community. So using that platform, we were able to automate significant components of contact tracing, which has been a topic of interest over the last few months. And we were able to automate some components of that, which has saved hundreds of staff hours. But there are also opportunities for us to further enhance that platform, making our contact tracing efforts more efficient and saving additional staff hours, even with the addition of staff. With the funding streams that have been granted to the city of St. Louis, the health department has been at the forefront of that. We've been having discussions with multidisciplinary teams to make sure that we are properly leveraging those funds and using them in an efficient way. And so although right now we have sufficient capacity to implement disease investigation activities, when I'm thinking towards the fall. So when influenza season approaches, there'll be an increase in other respiratory illnesses. And as you all know, the symptom profile for COVID-19 is very similar to a lot of other diseases and conditions. So making sure that we have sufficient capacity to manage the increase in cases during that time is a priority. And so we're looking to hire a significant number of additional staff to make sure that we have personnel in place, but we'll also continue to enhance our IT infrastructure. So building out the current platform that has already been established, which is working extremely well. We've gotten great feedback from individuals that have been reporting their symptoms and during the self-quarantine period. We've gotten great feedback from those individuals, but I think there's still some room for improvement because as we move forward, we have to continue to monitor COVID-19, but there are other diseases and conditions that are reportable as well. So we have foodborne illness outbreaks. So the platform can be used for that. For tuberculosis outbreaks, it can be used for that as well. And so there's a lot of different ways this platform can be used to ensure that we're properly conducting communicable disease control services for the community. And again, that's an essential service that's necessary to protect of our constituents and visitors.
I am very pleased with that response. And as we move.
Marlene, you're muted. There you go.
I think she froze.
Do you have a cure for that time?
Reboot. It's called reboot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called reboot. Hold on. There we are. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I understood as we move forward, your planning process for reporting back to us about the significant changes, not day to day, because that's your responsibility, not ours. But if there's something significant, and we do have ongoing communication with the mayor, but we want to make sure that that communication also is coming from you. So do you have a process in place for that reporting?
Absolutely. So one of the tools that some departments use is what we call vital statistics or vital reports, which gives a snippet of what's happening and on the public health side of things. And so we're working with our epidemiologists. And so using the platform that I mentioned before, Qualtrics, allows us to create standardized templates so that when things change or there's information that we need to get out to the community or the Board of Aldermen, we can do that in a timely manner. In addition to that, our public information officers, they do an amazing job of informing the community of any changes or initiatives that the health department is embarking upon. And so one mechanism for us to get regular information to you is through the distribution of information that comes through our public information officers. So and that's just a matter of adding individuals to that distribution list to make sure you get those updates as we issue them to the community.
Dr. Eccles, one of the things I learned a long time ago was it's important to inundate people with information. Now, whether they consume it or not, that's on them. But you can never send me enough. So please feel free to send us as much information as you feel is relevant at the moment. Thank you.
Absolutely, will do.
I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
Marlene, thank you very much. We'll move on to Alderman Vaccaro.
Yeah, I have no questions.
All right, thank you very much, Alderman. Alderwoman Howard.
Dr. Eccles, I just want to thank you for your stewardship of the city as we wrestle through the current health crisis we're in, and for your continued attention to the citizenry of St. Louis. Thank you. Okay. All right.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman Hubbard. Is Alderwoman Hubbard with us? All right, not hearing a response, we'll hold her spot open. Alderwoman Murphy.
No questions. I too want to thank Dr. Eccles for his stellar performance thus far in this awful time. The information that's been given out has been excellent, and I appreciate all the hard work you and the mayor and everybody's doing during this time. I have no questions about the budget at this time. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Eccles, for being here today. I know you're incredibly busy, and for making your staff and yourself available to our questions on such a regular basis moving through this. Being present on those calls with us is very, very helpful. With regards to the budget, what are the big changes that you can enumerate between last year's budget for the health department and this year's from a sort of an executive level?
Sure. So overall, there were no major changes other than cure violence being moved from the Department of Public Safety to the City of St. Louis Department of Health. And so there is a line item for roughly $2.35 million that'll be dedicated for cure violence activities for the upcoming fiscal year.
So when I'm looking, so like it looks like the director's budget, I'm looking in the account the 111 fund. We have the director of health and hospitals, 2000. It looks like funding shifted, or I guess I'm a little bit confused. It looks like funding has shifted from that to the health commissioner, and the health commissioner's budget went to zero, and then the director's health budget. I don't remember how that flipped.
Sure. So that happened last year. At the start of my tenure, because previously all of the staffing pattern was under the health commissioner budget, which was Melba Moore, and so we switched that to the director of health budget. So the 700 budget, which was my budget. So we just moved those items that was under the health commissioner to the director of health.
Okay, so that's just because the Melba was a functioning commissioner and you're the director, or a different role, different titles?
Well, no, so the health commissioner has their own budget, but right now that position is vacant. And so the health commissioner position is vacant.
And you're the health director, so that we don't have a health commissioner, we have a health director?
Correct.
Okay. It looks like we have 3 epidemiologists in this year's budget, whereas last year we didn't have any. We had a 0 line item. Do we have those 3 epidemiologists on staff?
Yeah, all of the epidemiologist positions have been filled except for one, and we're working with Department of Personnel to get that filled because it's funded through state funds.
Got it. And then it looks like the communicable disease control budget is actually slightly decreasing from last year. Can you walk us through that, considering we're in the midst of a pandemic and obviously communicable disease is an important topic right now, and certainly an incredibly important function for the health department?
Absolutely. So with the communicable disease, so the staffing pattern is essentially the same as it was last year. We didn't add any new positions to communicable disease, with the exception of one of our federal programs, which is Ryan White, but that doesn't impact general revenue. So the staffing pattern that's under general revenue is essentially the same, but that department does rely on some state funds, such as HIV prevention contract, which is also outlined in the documents that you receive. And some of the reductions are due to us being more efficient with our processes. For example, some things like office supplies. In the past, office supplies were grouped under one umbrella, but in order for us to more efficiently track the true expenditures for each program's like its office supply purchases, we're reallocating that, or creating an allotment for each program, so they can better track their purchase of things like office supplies. So as we looked across and we streamlined some of our processes, the reduction kind of came up.
Got it. And then, so this is just funding through the general fund. And then we have additional funding. My colleague from the 19th mentioned the CARES Act funding. Is that fund, and she mentioned that is money that has to be spent first before we get it. Can you walk us through that? Is that how that CARES Act funding is working for the city of St. Louis?
Sure. So CARES Act funding, so the way it actually works, so we have until December 31st to actually spend the monies, but all the monies have to be spent on activities that are related to COVID-19. And so we have a multidisciplinary group that's working across the city of St. Louis to actually make sure those funds are properly spent. We're collaborating with other departments because there are some overlapping issues. For example, resources needed for the unhoused individuals. That's something that's a shared priority between the Department of Health as well as the Department of Human Services. And so we're working together to make sure we're properly leveraging the funds, and making sure that we can maximize the usage of those funds. So with that will enable us to have the greatest impact possible, because this is a limited amount of funds and it's only one-time allocation, if you will.
Okay. So the CARES Act funding, we have to spend the money before we get it. I did not understand it to be the case.
So for the city of St. Louis, so because our population is less than 500,000, we received an allocation through the state. The allocation was $35 million. And so what we have to do now is identify how we're going to spend those monies down. Some COVID-19 activities have already been done through the city of St. Louis, but there will be more activities as we move through the year. And so we'll be properly documenting what our priorities are, so that we can, that will ensure we're spending those monies properly. And we also have to do we're working closely with the comptroller's office, because there are some restrictions. And so we want to make sure that we don't have any audit findings after the fact. And so making sure we're properly spending the money, properly submitting documentation to the comptroller's office, to the mayor's office, and communicating about any changes is going to be important. So everyone is on the same page as far as what needs to be done moving forward.
So can you walk us through the process of making those priorities and outlining those expenditures? I think I'm unaware of how that process currently works.
Absolutely. So for this, I can talk about the City of St. Louis Department of Health. And so what we use is a data-driven process. So we look at all of the data, particularly the health inequity, health disparity data that has been collected. We work with our epidemiologists to make sure that we're properly understanding what the issues are. We're also working with other agencies to understand so that we'll better understand what the true needs are, because just looking at the data alone may not be sufficient. And so we're working as a multidisciplinary group, using the data, using also information that we're getting from the community to determine what those priorities should be.
I guess I'm looking for the authorization process. So we authorize the expenditures of the general fund, and that's what we're kind of going through here today. Are the decisions being made on the CARES Act funding happening through your office, or is that a combination of Board of V&A, the comptroller's office? How are those being determined?
It's a collaborative effort, and I believe it will come through the Board of Alderman at some point. But right now we just have to make sure we have all our ducks in a row to determine what the true priorities are, what the true needs are. And because as you're well aware, the COVID-19 situation has highlighted some inequities, some issues that were pre-existing. And so to make sure that we have a plan in place to not only develop or implement temporary solutions, but to ensure that the solutions we establish are sustainable over time is going to be really important. And we can't do that in silos because sometimes we can miss things. And so having a multidisciplinary group work together to identify what the issues are and what the solutions should be is our approach.
And I just as for transparency, but the funds that have been expended already have come as directive through your office, or is that again, I'm just not understanding how that is currently those are currently being decided upon.
So the expended funds have been coming out of general revenue up until this time. So and so what we have to do is to reimburse ourselves for the work that's been done, but we have to make sure that those activities are COVID-19 related.
Okay, but they're being directed from your office, or is that being directed from the Board of VNA?
It's a multidisciplinary group that's working together.
If you don't mind, would you just share with the Ways and Means Committee, and you can do it in an email afterwards, just who's on the committee, so we just have some idea of where those, how those are being decided upon. I get a lot of questions about this from the general public, and I think it would be helpful to just understand who's on that multidisciplinary committee. Again, Dr. Eccles, you are always available to answer questions from all of us during many different meetings. You seem to be in a lot of different places at one time. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for answering my questions. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Alderwoman. We'll move on to Alderman Muhammad. Is Alderman Muhammad amongst us? Well, we'll come back to see
earlier. There he is.
Are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, young lad, we can.
I have no questions for the director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. All right, Alderman Oldenburg.
Same here, Mr. Chairman. No questions. Thank you, Dr. Eccles.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is Alderwoman Boyd still with us? I looked like she left earlier.
No, I've been here the whole time listening, multitasking.
All righty.
I have no questions. Thank you, Dr. Eccles.
Thank you.
All right, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
No questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Eccles, for all your work.
Thank you.
All right, Doc, I appreciate it. Apparently you're not asking for anything more. So your efforts are much appreciated by the committee. So, but thank you. I know this has been a terrible time for everyone, and it seems like you've been doing a wonderful job, and we appreciate all your hard work and your staff. Thank you so much for making time for us today.
All right, thank you. My pleasure.
All right. With that, you're excused, sir. And the committee will talk amongst ourselves.
Can I ask Joe Papiro a question?
Well, if you must, yes.
But you're not in the Oval Office anymore. Did you get impeached?
No, actually, I thought I'd change it up. This is, in fact, if I move out of the way, you'll see.
Okay.
That's in the competition for the American Ninja Warrior.
Oh.
So they were here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And for the fun of it.
A while back. I remember that. Yeah.
Did you try out, Joe?
All right. Well, now
no,
remember,
I tried a couple of things.
Point of order, folks. We're still in a meeting. We have not adjourned the meeting before we have personal conversations.
That's right.
So,
I didn't know.
We're on the city's nickel right now, so let's make the most of it.
So, I'd like to bring up, if it's okay.
What would you like to bring up?
Well, still yet my issue with the ward capital. I checked with Lou Golly, and John has everybody's email address. He's going to send it out. What was voted on, and there's no wiggle room in it. The money goes to certain pots, and a certain percent of that taxes gets divided. The half-cent sales tax, certain amount goes to the police. It goes different places, but a certain amount of that gets divided up amongst the 28 wards. And it's specific, even in the ballot language, it's specific. So technically, they can't touch, they're not supposed to, and they've always done it in the past. They've used it to balance, so it's fluctuated. But, you know, and I know we're gonna do ask for the 5 million. I'm sure they're not gonna have a problem with it. But I'm just curious as a group, how do we address that? Do we just keep letting that slide year after year, saying, oh, well? But it was, they like to bring up, when we talk about the ward reduction, everybody likes it. Well, it was voted the people. You can't go against that. Yet this was a very definite vote of the people. The only way this passed, and it was back when Bosley, John's going to send it to everybody because he's got everybody's. It's very specific on Section 9 that money can't be used for anything other than these specific things. It would have to go back to the voters when you start taking money from that. No different than taking money out of the Metro or the Parks funds, or taking money out of the MetroLink fund.
Well,
This is very
okay.
specific.
What I would suggest, Joe, is because I don't believe that affects this year's budget, but that seems like something we need to bring up with a legal point of view. And how far back do we want it to go from the point it was voted on? Pick see what misuse there might have been of these funds, and then I guess create a format for us to investigate it. So
but
if we
it definitely affects this budget, because the ward capital is not included in this budget.
Well,
it definitely includes this budget.
But what we're talking about, to me, and maybe anyone can jump in, it seems more like we're doing a legal matter, and we're under press to get this budget through. This sounds like it might take a little longer than the time we have to investigate or to get this back. So I think the matter before us is doing this. I believe we should bring it up and look into that. And I'm guessing there's also a matter of interest will be due on all this money that's been, that should be in our budgets is not there also.
I mean, my concern, and I know we're going to correct it somewhat with that 5 million, and I'm satisfied with that.
Okay.
Because people are saying, well, Joe, how come I can't get your, the other thing, the speed humps, the $1,000. I was told that now, when we come up the new year, they put those two guys in to streets, and we're not supposed to pay that. And even in the ordinance, again, we shouldn't have to do that. So the ward capital, to you and to every one of the aldermen, to our constituents that pay, again, in my neighborhood, and I'm sure in yours, our taxes went up over $3,000 over here. And people are not happy with the lack of services that go on.
No, currently, for me, due to COVID, they've actually stopped all the speed studies for our speed humps because of traffic being at a deficit level, that they're not going to actually perform these surveys until the COVID has been, the lockdown is at a lesser level, till there's more people traveling, because they don't believe they can get a true read. So the speed hump surveys are actually on hold until further notice through BPS. So that's even going to delay it even out further, regardless of funding, because they're not going to be doing it.
We can't use. Last year we used the flood. This year we're using COVID. Next year maybe the sun will be in our eyes, but they are opening things up, and people want these speed humps.
I'm aware. I have 19 requests in my ward.
I have 30, Joe, that have been there for over about a year and a half. I got $100,000 in sidewalks that haven't even got started. They hired a group that couldn't even get a bond, that never did sidewalks. So now, a week ago, they said, "Oh, well, we'll go back to the people that were doing it before." After
that's happened many times. During the city bidding process, any government bidding process, if it looks qualified on paper, they get it. Then they get to the point where they can't handle the work because they see the numbers, and we usually end up with one or the two same suspects doing the work every time. It's either going to be Gershenson or Sicker Brothers, typically, who end up with the work. They put the bid in, but if someone, the last time it was under bid was about 2.5 years ago, and that was actually a plastering company that qualified to get the bid because they saw the dollar amount, but they could not perform the work, and it pushed the program back almost 8 months. So those are the things that you deal with, unfortunately, as a government. So, but what I want to pertain to is, is getting this budget through, and I think we're all well aware of the ward capital situation. If we can get the 5 million from that, but I would proceed with what we're doing to try and get the information. If there's a way legally to see what can be done with the old money or what's been happening with the past dues, let's do that. But we do need to proceed with this and attack it.
I don't disagree, and I don't disagree, Joe. And I know we're going to put in for the 5 million to be, or even 8 million if they take an additional 3 out of the reserves, because this 5 million is dedicated to the reserves.
Well, we could have a treasurer who doesn't take all the money and get a treasurer who gives us all the money in the city. We wouldn't have this problem.
No, that's not really true, because we got 10 million, and then this 5 million that's coming out of the treasurer's office that Jeffrey took care of is marked, and the way it's written goes in the reserves. So we have to ask for that money to come out of reserves, whether we ask for the 5 or the 8 million or whatever that number is. We have to ask for that.
Okay.
But I would assume, I don't know, I would assume Sharon Tyus will go forward with.
Well, that's fine. We'll proceed with that. Well, we have now the full board. So what we're going to do is next Tuesday, again at 10 o'clock, and next Wednesday at 10. And you'll have Mr. Bradley of BPS to talk to on Monday. So I thank you all for your time today. Is there any other points anyone would like to bring up before we adjourn?
I don't think we're going to have anybody talk to us Monday.
That's what
Tuesday. I'm sorry, Tuesday.
That's okay. I just wanted
Carol,
to.
my life has been thrown off.
You know what?
These last 2 months have thrown my life off completely. Yesterday, I had a cocktail shaker behind the bar instead of a hammer in my hand for the first time.
Okay.
Just as a reminder, the board meeting is actually tomorrow, Joe.
As it is tomorrow morning. Yes, that's correct. So I'll see you all tomorrow at the board meeting, and then Tuesday at 10 a.m. Everyone have a safe holiday weekend. Enjoy your Monday off.
Adios.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second?
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you, Sharita. Thank you very much. I saw you look at me like you forgot to adjourn the meeting.
Have a good one, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Happy holiday.
All right.